gears, talk a little bit about hurricane season. The NHC has updated their forecasting with some experimental graphics and alerts. And we've been keeping a pretty close eye on some of that preliminary tropical activity that could try to fire up in the East Pacific over the next couple of days. Let's bring in an expert here to discuss all that and more. Chief Meteorologist and President of Weathertiger, Dr. Ryan Truchelut. Hey, thanks a lot for hanging out with us here, Dr. Ryan. So let's start off with what's going to happen in the East Pacific over the next couple of weeks. We've been following this for a little while. As I understand it, kind of a broad area of low pressure develops. The GFS had a couple of runs where it was trying to show a storm developing or two. That seemed to be an outlier, though. What are your thoughts on how this pans out?
Well, it's not an unusual state of affairs in the Eastern Pacific, where the hurricane season begins this week on May 15th. Typically in the Eastern Pacific, 1 out of every 2 or so hurricane seasons do have a tropical cyclone develop during the month of May. And they often develop from these broad areas of low pressure that form over Central America, called Central American gyres. So there's been some model support over the last week for development in the 4 to 8 days from now time frame, south and west of Mexico, very much in the typical place where these things often get going early in the Eastern Pacific hurricane season. But as you say, model support has not been consistent. The GFS does tend to be a little biased in favor of developing some of these features more proactively than the European model. European model's been a bit more conservative with it. So, right now I would say we're in a wait and see mode for the Eastern Pacific. National Hurricane Center has not seen it fit to issue a special tropical weather outlook for the potential for development here. We'll start getting those tropical weather outlooks issued on Thursday, and they'll go on the board and say what they think the development probability is going to be. Right now, I would say maybe a 20 to 40% chance of eventual development.
Yeah, and we're still looking at a couple of, like a week away, too. Doctor, we were looking at sea surface temperatures this year compared to last year on the Atlantic side now. Last year, we were all concerned at how much warmer it was than the average. This year, it's still above average, but not as warm as it was last year at this time. So do you think that's going to have a big bearing on our Atlantic hurricane season, at least initially?
Certainly, that's one of the things that as a seasonal forecaster, I do look at ahead of time. The other one, of course, being whether we're in an El Nino or a La Nina in the Pacific Ocean. So as you say, yes, those sea surface temperatures, while in general, especially in the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, they are above average. Further east in the Atlantic main development region, west of Africa, west of Southwest Europe, sea surface temperatures are close to average or even a bit cooler than average. And those are places that have higher correlations with the amount of hurricane activity in the season ahead. So milder sea surface temperatures in some of the areas where we as seasonal forecasters monitor more closely ahead of time indicates that I think we're probably not heading for another hyperactive hurricane season as we were very likely tabbed to be for 2024. So busy season, probably hyperactive season, probably not.
So I've noticed at the Hurricane Center, they've got a bunch of changes coming up for this year. And, some of them I think will probably not be super noticeable for a lot of people, like the cone being a tiny bit smaller.
What, 3%?
Yeah, we're getting like some higher amounts of skill in the forecast. That's not too surprising to meteorologists, I would say. But, the things that I think are going to be more helpful, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, the inland warnings, the potential tropical cyclones can be issued a little bit earlier and things like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's great that the National Hurricane Center is going to continue to be pushing forward this experimental cone product that they put out last year. And it highlights when there is a time frame in which a hurricane is forecast to move over land, you're not seeing just the cone product, you're seeing an impacts product. You're seeing those watches and warnings for the continental United States or whatever landmass storm's going to be moving over. They're just making a little tweak this year. They're making it clearer when there's both a tropical storm warning and a hurricane watch in effect that is the situation. That was a bit of a ambiguous feature of the plots previously, but they're making that more clear now. And that's great because I think everything that we're doing as meteorologists and hurricane forecasters needs to be in the direction of forecasting impacts. The cone product that the general public is familiar with, it's not an impacts cone. It's a statement of where do we think it's probable a 2/3 roughly probability that the center of the circulation is going to move. And of course, a tropical cyclone is not a point. Rain and wind impacts can extend hundreds of miles away from the center of circulation. So by forefronting those watches and warnings, I think we're moving in that more impacts-based direction, and that's a very good thing. They're also going to be putting out those forecast products for potential tropical cyclones, cases where the National Hurricane Center sees a good probability of a tropical storm developing within the next 2 or 3 days. They will have more flexibility to issue those advisory products that we're familiar with 3 days ahead of time rather than 2 days ahead of time.
Oh, that's great.
As has been the previous kind of mode of operation.
You're talking with the
which
PTCs,
is great because
right?
forecasts continue to get more accurate.
Yeah.
And this just reflects that we often have confidence, even before a system is formed, that there will be significant impacts to land areas.
Yeah, it seems like there's a really big focus coming up on just trying to get away from exactly where is the landfall going to be and being so focused on that.
Right.
Like the rip current forecasts are going to be upgraded too. So a couple nice little upgrades that they're making to the forecasts. Dr. Ryan Truchelut, thanks a lot for the time. We got to run here, but that was some great insight. I appreciate it, brother.
All right, take care.